So we'll start off with the prayers. Please chant with me. Om Sada Shiva Samarambha Shankaracharya Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sah Veeryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhinamadhavimhi Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. So we'll chant the 18th verse again. We were in the middle of the 18th verse. We are not completed. So we'll just chant it. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Antavanta ime deha Nityasyokta sharirinaha Anashino prameyasya Tasma vyudhyasva bharata. Okay. So we had discussed the words Antavanta, Deha, Nitya, Shariranaha, and Anashanaha. These words have been discussed in great detail. Now we have to look at the word Aprameyasya. So you are familiar with the Triputi, right? Pramata, Pramanam, and Prameyam. So Pramata is the one who knows. Pramanam is the instrument, the tool with which he knows. And Prameyam is the object of the knowledge. So if, for example, you are studying, let us say, the stars, you are an astronomer studying the stars. The Pramata is you. What are the Pramanam and the Prameyam?
The stars are the Prameyam.
Stars are the Prameyam. What is the Pramanam?
The telescope.
The telescope is the Pramanam. Okay, so this is, the meaning is very clear. Therefore, a Prameyam is the object of some study. The object of any knowledge is Prameyam. And here Krishna is saying Aprameyasya. Aprameyam means it can never be an object of knowledge. We are talking about what? About the Atma. So he says Atma Aprameya. It can never be an object of knowledge. Why? So if the Atma can never be an object of knowledge, then what is the problem? The problem is that you can never get to know the Atma. Okay, so that Atma, the word is a very important one, because that Atma, which is always existing, Trikale Tishtati Iti Sat, that is the Atma, right? Always existing in all the time frames. But here he says Aparameya. That Atma you can never know, right? And this is an Atma, therefore, which doesn't fall in the world of any experience. In any transaction, what are the three entities involved? There is the experiencer, there is the experience, the tool of the experience, and there is the experienced object. And here Krishna is saying that this Atma, because it is neither the Pramanam nor the Prameyam, what is the Atma? It is the, what is Atma then?
Pramata.
Aprameya.
It is the Pramata itself. It is the experiencer itself. And that is why Atma is called Aprameya, because Atma can never be the object of an experience for a very simple reason. The subject of any experience can never be the object of the experience. The subject can never be the object for obvious reasons. So the Atma is always the experiencer, never the experienced, always the Pramatru or the Pramata, never the Prameyam. The Drik can never be the Drishyam. Understand? The
But
eyes.
Atma is Akarta.
Yeah, we'll come to that. So Drik can never be the Drishyam. Right? The eyes can never be the object of the eyes. And you can never see your eyes, however powerful your eyes are. Even if you've got 20 by 20 vision, you can never see your eyes. Can you ever see your eyes?
No.
What about in the mirror?
That's
That's the reflection.
You see the reflection.
See a reflected eye, you can never see the original eye. So these are the examples from which we are trying to work backwards. However powerful the eyes are, they cannot see themselves. And as consciousness or the Atma, you are the subject. And therefore you can never see yourself. So any drishya, any object of vision, of anything which you see, is always paricheda. Paricheda means limited. Right? So anything which is limited is an object. And therefore, whatever is seen by you, felt by you, heard by you, touched by you, remember that they are always paricheda. They are always kala paricheda, limited in time, because every object has a beginning and an end. And therefore, whatever is available to you is always temporary. There is nothing permanent ever available to you. That is why Atma is not available to you. Atma is permanent. It is not a prameyam. Therefore, it cannot be available to you. Then you should immediately get one question. If I can never know Atma, what is the question then that should come to your mind immediately?
How do we know that it exists?
No, the question is, if I can never know the Atma, what am I doing sitting in this class?
How will I get Atma then?
Right? What is the point of studying the Shastram if Atma can never be known? Okay. So what is the answer? Krishna doesn't give an answer. Okay. So Shankara you have to rely upon. So Shankara in his commentary says that the pramanams, and this is a very important point. The pramanam, the Shastram, is not here to establish the existence of the Atma. Right? Why? Because any pramanam has got to be used by you. So for example, pratyaksha pramanam, they cannot establish the existence of the Atma because you cannot see the Atma. You cannot see the Atma, you cannot touch the Atma, you cannot smell the Atma. All these 5 pramanams which you have. What are the 5 pramanam? Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Gandha, and guys, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa,
Rupa,
Gandha,
Rasa, Gandha.
and Rasa. All these 5 pramanams, they cannot establish the Atma's existence because you cannot use them to see. Similarly, the 6th pramanam here is Shabda pramanam, which is a Veda. And that Veda itself is not there for the purpose of establishing the Atma's existence. Why? Because if you are listening to the Shastram, are you conscious or not?
Yes.
Yes.
And the very fact that you're listening, it establishes the fact that Atma is there. Nobody ever asks himself, am I there or not? Do you ever turn around and ask your friend, hey, do I exist? Am I conscious? You never ask, right? Why don't you ask?
Because I'm sure that I'm there.
Because it is self-evident. You do not need a proof. The revelation of the Atma is self-established. The fact that I exist need not be established by any Shastram. In fact, if any Shastram tells you that you do not exist, you will reject because you know that I exist. That is a self-evident, Swayam Prakashaha. That is what is this word in Sanskrit. Self-revealing. The very fact that you are conscious and listening to the class, that Atma is already established. That is why Shastra does not need, Shastra is not meant for establishing the Atma, because the very fact that you are studying the Shastram, Atma must also already be present. The Shastram cannot establish what is already there. The student who is sitting in the class, the Atma is already there in terms of consciousness principle, in terms of existence principle. The same argument goes for all the other pramanams, pratyaksham, anumanam, agami, all these things. They all need who? They need the person who is using the pramanam, the pramata it needs. The pramata, when you say, you're automatically saying Atma is there, consciousness is there. And therefore, no pramanam is needed to establish the existence of the Atma. Anybody who says, how do I know that Atma is there? What is the answer to him? What is the answer you must give somebody?
Fact that one is
Fact that you're asking this itself shows you're conscious, so you're there.
Absolutely. The fact that you are able to ask that question indicates the consciousness is already there, existence is already there, it indicates Atma is there. It need not be established at all. That is why the one who wants to use a pramanam, in this case, Shastra Pramanam, the one who wants to use the Shastra Pramanam is the same one who is the Prameyam also, who sought to be known by the Pramanam. Therefore, there must be this self-evident Atma already present before you can start to use the Pramanam. And therefore, Atma is Swata Siddhaha, self-evident. No Pramanam is needed to establish that you exist. What does Pramanam do? Pramanam removes the wrong ideas you have about yourself or about the Atma. Right? What is that wrong idea? I mistake myself. Who am I? I am this Swata Siddha Atma. This self-revealing Atma I am. But I mistake the Jiva, the Karta, the Bhokta as myself. I mistake this body, mind, sense complex as myself. This limited finite entity, which is the Jiva, I mistake it for myself. This limited entity who has a birth, who has a death, who is subject to disease, who is subject to Shadvikara, who is subject to being happy and who is subject to being sad. I say, this is I. That is the mistaken conclusion. So the Jivatvam, what is Jivatvam? The status of being a Jiva. That is the problem. And that is my mistaken conclusion. Shastram says that this Jivatvam is mithya. It is not a real status. Because your real status is what? Atma is your real status. And this Jivatvam is something which you superimpose upon the Atma. And then you the Atma, take on the ownership of all the finite problems of the Jiva. And then you say, I am sad, I am miserable, I am subject to birth and death. The sadhaka, the seeker, is born out of this mistake, out of this mistaken conclusion. Because if this mistaken conclusion was not there, if you were born with the full knowledge that I am the Atma and this Jiva is this body is something which I am using, then there is no need for an inquiry. Therefore, the seeker, the sadhaka, is born out of that mistake which we have made, that I am this body-mind complex. And the Shastram is a pramanam only to this extent. It removes the ignorance about the fact that I am the Atma and not this body, mind, sense complex. And that is why we say Jnanam. What is Jnanam for? Jnanam is for the removal of what?
Taken notion.
Avidya, Ajnana. Right. So this is the basic thrust of this verse. It is saying that there is no need for a pramanam to prove that you exist, because your existence is not a matter of discussion at all. Right? It need not be discussed because it's a matter of complete conviction. The only problem is, I know that I am. So remember that whenever we say I am, there are no problems in this world. The moment you add, I am a girl, I am a boy, that's where the problems start. So where do the problems belong to? The problems belong to the addition of that word. Boy, girl, man, father, mother, daughter, sister, brother. That word, when added on to I am, that creates all your problems in life. And obviously, you know, like what is a better way of explaining this? In Sushupti Avastha, in deep sleep, do you have any problems?
No.
No. In fact, even supposing that a person who is, let us say, in the terminal stages of some disease, okay, it's only for an example. Let us say he is in terminal stages of cancer. In Sushupti Avastha, does he have any botheration?
No.
He is happy, right? He doesn't know that he is a person. He doesn't know that he has got a body. He doesn't know the body is afflicted with cancer. He doesn't know that he's got a few weeks to live. And so there are no problems. And therefore, we use the technique called Anvaya Vyatireka. It's a technique which you must know about. Okay. So a small little discussion on that technique, because this technique we will use lots of times. So in English, it is called the coabsence principle. So let me try to explain. Supposing you have a cup of coffee in front of you, right? You taste the coffee and then you find that it's not sweet. So then you add some sugar, or the more healthy thing is jaggery, right? So you add jaggery to it and you stir it. And then you sip it and then you find that it is sweet. So you can make two statements. Sugar added, coffee sweet. No sugar added. So sugar present, coffee sweet. Sugar absent, coffee not sweet. What is the conclusion from this?
Sugar is sweet.
Sugar is sweet.
No, you say sugar is the cause for the sweetness. Okay. Sugar is sweet is the same thing. Sugar is cause. Now this co-absence, this is a Vyatireka, it's called Vyatireka. No sugar, not sweet. This is Vyatireka. Sugar there, coffee sweet. That is Anvaya. This is a technique used. Something is there is a result. Something is not there, that result is not there. Okay. So here you will say, in Sanskrit, let us say, sugar abhave, sweetness abhave. Sugar satve, sweetness satve. Therefore, sugar eva, sweetness. Okay, sugar is the cause of the sweetness. So this is the technique being used over here. And therefore, in this context of our discussion, this, what does it say? When you are aware of the body, there are all sort of problems. This is Anvaya. I am aware of the body and I have all sort of problems. In Sushupti Avastha, I am not aware of the body or the mind. I have no problems. What is the conclusion?
Body is the cause of problems.
All the problems belong to my body and mind. You are saying all the problems belong to my body and mind. In both cases, you are there. How do you know?
Because you come out of Sushupti Avastha.
Because you are saying that when the body and mind is there, I have problems. When the body and mind is not there, I have no problems. You are saying, right? So you are the underlying factor. So the conclusion from that is that the problems belong to the body and mind and they do not belong to me. Clear? That is the conclusion used by, the conclusion arrived at by using this method of Anvaya Vyatireka. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
Anvaya is the name of the technique, but when we are learning the meanings of the verses, that also you use the word.
That's different.
Let's.
Anvaya is a form. So the words have different
Okay.
meanings in different contexts. So don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Now, so basically, if you want to reconvert it, you will say that when I am not aware that I am Atma, then there are lots of problems. When I'm aware that I'm Atma, then there are no problems. And therefore, all problems belong, or rather, all problems belong to Ajnanam, the non-awareness. And that is why knowledge is used for the purpose of removal of the non-awareness. Okay, this is the simple way of understanding. Now here, in his commentary, Shankara enters into a discussion about the nature of seeing something, the nature of perception. This is important to us because it enables us to understand how we perceive. And since it is Shankara commentary, it requires a lot of focus. Okay, so I'll request you to listen carefully, and if you don't understand, ask immediately. So,
Acharya, what is this coexistence absence principle called?
Anvaya Vyatireka. Anvaya is coexistence, Vyatireka is coabsence.
Thank you.
Okay. Now here we are going into what is known as the theory of perception, how one perceives. Now, supposing you are looking at something, you are perceiving something. Let us say I am perceiving this mouse. Is it finite or infinite?
It's finite.
And you can look at anything which you, any sense organ of yours, you can use it to perceive any object. You will find that ultimately every perception is in terms of a limited object only. The object has to be limited, then only you can perceive. What is the proof that you cannot perceive an unlimited object?
The boundaries of the object.
Cannot perceive space.
You cannot
We cannot
perceive
go.
space. Right? You cannot
Yeah.
perceive space. Why? Because there are no boundaries. And so in Sanskrit, you use a word called paricheda. Paricheda means limitation, limited. So the theory says that whichever object is paricheda, that only can be seen by us. So paricheda means limitation. Parichedya means the object which is limited. Okay, there are three words are there. Slight differences in the inflection in the spellings. You don't need to remember. Okay, in English, if you want to remember, you can remember it as the limitation, the limited object. So paricheda is limitation. Parichedya means the object which is subject to limitation. Parichedaka is the third word. Parichedaka means that because of which the limitation comes about. Because of which the limitation. So Parichedaka is that faculty because of which the object is subject to limitation, Parichedda, and therefore becomes the Parichedya, the object which is limited. So far clear?
But can I ask question? Shastri?
Yeah, please go ahead.
When we look at sea, ocean,
Yes.
it is so vast, we can't see its all the boundaries, but
No,
still we,
whatever you are seeing is a boundary for you. You are seeing the horizon, right?
yes.
Horizon is a boundary. You cannot see an object which has no boundary.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, when you're going by this argument only. When I am looking at a tomato, let us say, or a potato, right? Simple things. Are they limited or not? They are limited. They are all parichedyas, limited objects. What is it because of which I recognize that they are parichedya? It is your sense organs, your indriyas. So Shastra says it is the indriyas which bring about the limitation for the object, and that is why you are able to recognize them. Therefore, the parichedaka here is the indriya, the sense organ are the parichedyas, all the objects which are limited. Why is anything limited? Why do I say that when I look at a tomato, it is limited? What is the, if I were to ask you, explain why tomato is parichedya. What would be your explanation?
It has a boundary.
Very good. It has a boundary. If you want to put that in another language, what will you say? It has got a form.
Limited in space.
Exactly. Limited in space, it has got a form. Right? So the form, the boundary is the form of the tomato. And that form it is which limits the tomato. What perceives that form?
Sense organ.
Indriyas.
Eyes and
Indriyas.
Your eyes and your sense of touch, whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
two things are there. That whatever perceives that form, it is because of that indriya that the tomato becomes limited for you. You understand? Because you're able to
Yes.
see the boundary of the tomato, it becomes a limited object for you, and therefore your eyes are called the parichedakas, the factor which limits the tomato. Do you understand why it is called parichedaka? It is not that your eyes cut the tomato. Your eyes recognize the boundary of the tomato, and therefore it is the parichedaka. Okay, clear? So please ask immediately, okay? Because if you don't understand one line, the next one you won't.
Suryaji, in this case, I is looking at the tomato because that part only is tomato. So is it the I who is limiting or it is already being limited?
What picks up the form? The form is the limitation. What picks up the form for you?
Eyes.
Eye. And therefore, it is the, if you are blind, for example,
Mhm.
that same tomato, you would not be able to see as round. So it becomes an unlimited tomato for you.
So it means that it is our perception which makes the everything limited.
Very good question. This world exists where?
Our mind.
In the mind.
In our
Everything which
mind.
exists only in your mind.
Yeah.
Your entire world, which you know, all the people you know, there is no external entity. Everything is there as an electrical impulse in your mind. Okay. So now we make a generalization from here. From this argument, we make a generalization saying that every pramanam that you have becomes a parichedaka whenever it picks up the pramayam. So whatever is picked up by the pramanam, it becomes the limited object, the parichedya. The very act of picking up some object by your pramanam has two implications. It converts the pramanam into a limited, the prameyam, the object, into parichedya, a limited object. It converts the pramanam into parichedaka, the limiting factor. Okay. And that which cannot be known by such a pramanam, that for which the pramanam cannot be a parichedaka, and that which does not become parichedya, that is called aprameya. Is that clear?
So in that case, sky, I'm
Can you
little
please repeat
confused.
that?
Yeah, can you please repeat it, sir?
Okay, sir.
I'm
Yes.
saying that whenever the pramanam is able to pick up something, that pramanam becomes the instrument of limitation, and the object picked up by the pramanam becomes the limited object. So parichedaka and parichedya. And when there is something which cannot be picked up by a pramanam, that pramanam cannot become parichedaka, and that something cannot become parichedya.
So what about space? Like space is something that a pramanam cannot pick up.
Yes, for you space is aprameya, but your mind picks up the space. For your eyes, it is aprameya, you cannot see. But your mind picks it up, is it not?
But mind, it's not categorized into any pramanam.
Mind is the sixth pramanam, always. It is the sum totality of all the pramanams.
And sir, like when we say that Atma is the experiencer, it cannot be experienced, but it is the experiencer.
Yes.
So what I have understood so far, we have, I don't know if I'm wrong, but we have always said that Atma is not an experiencer, it is a witness. Because Atma doesn't experience, it is the body which is experiencing.
No. When you get into that argument, then it is the RC which is the experiencer. The OC is not. When I say Atma experiences, the RC is experiencing. But the RC is experiencing why?
Because Atma is there.
Because
OC
it has a simplicity.
Because OC is there. Without OC, RC cannot exist. It is in that indirect sense that you say Atma is the experiencer. Okay. Now here you have to understand these mild little differences. When you say Atma is experiencer, for the purpose of these chapters, you're going to take it as Atma. But as you advance, you have to drop the fact that OC can experience at all. For any experience, what is required? Mind is required. Mind is where? In Atma or Anatma? And therefore, the mind which is Jada, mind is what? It is basically matter only, right? It is Sukshma matter. How do you know it's Sukshma matter?
Because we can experience it.
No.
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 There is no form, it's not scalar.
Because you cannot see it.
No. What is the source of the mind? How did it come about?
As the guna
Consciousness.
from the consciousness.
You guys
No.
are forgetting Tattva Bodha.
Sukshma
From the
Bhautika.
No.
Sukshma Bhautika se Sukshma Bhauta.
Rajas.
It cannot be
Go back
perceived
to
by
Tattva Bodha. No. Don't do it. Whenever you talk about these things, you have to reference Tattva Bodha. What does Tattva Bodha say about how the mind is created? From where does it come?
sattvic aspect.
From the sattvic aspects.
Of what? Panchamahabhutani, right?
Of the
Yeah.
Panchamutani. Yeah.
Panchamahabhutani is what? Anatma or Atma?
Anat.
If the Karanam is Anatma, the Karyam has to be Anatma. Okay, that is why mind is anatma only. So that is the way you need to explain, not by saying I can experience it and all those things. Why do you experience it? Because that mind is now a reflecting medium. It's a mirror. It is reflecting the OC. That reflected consciousness is you, the jiva. The reflected consciousness is the thinker, the doer, the knower, but not the OC. Okay, this is the argument here. Munmun, I hope you're clear on that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we said that what is not known by a pramanam, not knowable by a pramanam, that is called aprameya, which is the reason if Brahman could be picked up by your indriyas, what would happen to Brahman?
It would be
Limited.
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 Now you see the logic. If Brahman could be picked up by any indriya, that indriya would become the parichedaka and Brahman would become parichedya, which is limited and therefore anitya. Okay, therefore Atma cannot be known by pratyakshadi pramanam, which includes the Veda also. All this is what? An explanation of the word. Which word?
Aprameya.
Aprameya.
Aprameya. So it's a logical explanation also, right? This what is said here is Shruti, is the explanation from the scripture. Atma aprameyasya. But the logical explanation which I gave you just now is that if at all any pramanam can pick up the Atma, that Atma would become limited immediately and therefore would become finite. And Veda itself is Shabda pramanam. If Veda could pick up the Atma, that also will limit the Atma and make it finite, and therefore Atma cannot be known at all. Aprameyasya. But fortunately for us, Atma is already known to us. How?
Self-evident. We are alive.
Self-evident.
You have to say Atma is already known to me as I am. The fact that I am is the only fact which I am 100% sure about, which I don't need any evidence from anybody else. However, this I am is taken as I am sad, I am happy, I am rich, I am poor, I am handsome, I am not handsome. This is the problem. The self-evident status of I is called aparoksha jnana, immediate knowledge for which no pramanam is necessary, and Brahman is aparoksha. Okay, so this Brahman, the Satvastu, is being revealed here, saying that nobody can affect this Brahman at all. Nobody can destroy the Brahman, including Ishvara. Why? Why cannot Ishvara destroy Brahman? Because to destroy,
You need another person.
yes, for a destruction, you need a subject-object relationship. Right? If Ishvara has to destroy Atma, there should be a kartru karma sambandha in Sanskrit, which means subject-object relationship. And that is not there because they are the same. They are I. Okay. Then there's another question. These things are together, right? In a jiva, or even in Ishvara for that matter, there is Satyam, which is Brahman, and there is Mithya, which is Maya. So Ishvara is Satyam plus Mithya, Brahman plus Maya. Okay, right. Now, this is a good question which a lot of people get confused with. Supposing, for example, you are sitting in a very fragrant room, okay, in a room where there is a lot of agarbatti burning, all these incense sticks are burning, and you have sat for 1.5 hours in that room. Constantly that pleasant fragrance of the incense sticks has been there. Now, when you go out of the room, somebody can smell that same fragrance on your body. What has happened? The pleasant smell of that agarbatti, that incense stick, has been transferred to your clothes. Right? So a question can be asked. This body of mine is in constant touch with what?
Atma.
With
Atma Brahman.
This body mind complex of mind is anatma. It is in constant touch with atma. Atma is immortal. So just like the smell of the fragrance stick has been transferred to the clothes, is it not possible for this immortality to be transferred to the body mind complex? It's a valid question, right? If I'm sitting on a dirty floor, the dirt of the floor, can somebody put off that phone, please? The dirt of that floor can get transferred to my clothes. And therefore the question is valid. Supposing I am in constant touch, my body mind complex is in constant touch with the immortal Atma, which it is because I am Jiva. Jiva consists of Atma plus body mind sense complex. Why cannot the immortality be transferred to the body mind sense complex? It's a question.
That will become Mitha.
Can you explain that a bit more? Yes, you are
Yes,
right
sir,
track.
because it is coming from the so it is
One more, your voice is breaking up.
yes, sir, I understand.
Okay,
My
then let me
network
explain.
is
So
If it
these-
is transferred, it is a part or a product, then it becomes an atma. It can no longer be.
no, let me give an example.
Dependent.
Supposing you are dreaming, right? You are in Swapna Avastha and you are dreaming. Now, in that dream, you fall into a ditch, which is very bad smelling. Okay, and your body, and in the dream, your body is smelling and smelling and smelling. Now you wake up. Will the smell still be there?
No,
Why not?
No.
different orders of reality.
Different orders of reality. That's absolutely correct answer. One is Vyavaharika, the transactional order of reality in which your body, mind, sense complex is operational, Jagrata Avastha. One is Swapna Avastha. One is of a lower level of reality than Jagrat. Swapna Avastha is of a lower level of reality than Jagrat. And therefore, Shastra says that, and Swapna Avastha is called what? It's got a particular name. What is it called? Your Jagrata Avastha is called Vyavaharika Satyam, the transactional order of reality.
Pratibhasika.
Swapna Avastha is called the Pratibhasika Satyam. It's a lower order of reality. And Shastram says that transfer of attributes cannot take place between different orders of reality. So the mud on your clothes in the Pratibhasika Satyam, which is the Swapna Avastha, will not be available to you in the Jagrata Avastha, which is Vyavaharika Satyam. Now, do you know why the immortality of the Atma cannot be transferred to the body, mind, sense complex? Why is that so?
Because that's a different order of reality. It's
Can
an
you?
absolute.
One is the Paramarthika Satyam,
Paramarthika
and one is the
Satyam.
Vyavaharika Satyam.
Vyavaharika.
Vyavaharika Satyam.
Right. So one is Satyam and one is Mithya. The attributes of the Mithya object can never be transferred to the higher order of reality, which is Paramarthika subject. And therefore, the Paramarthika attribute of immortality cannot be transferred to the Vyavaharika body, mind, sense complex. Okay, these are all, questions which can come about while you're doing Maranam. So I'm just, when you are doing a Maranam, these sort of questions should come out. And that is why I'm giving you some ideas.
Raviji, may I ask something?
Yes, please.
So the transfer is not possible of attributes.
No.
What about Satyatvam? I mean, the Atma lends existence,
Yes.
and even in the dream state, like the waker lends existence to the dreamer.
Yes.
Would that not be called a transfer then?
It's a mithya, right? There is no real existence. It is as if transfer has taken place. That is why you call it mithya. If Atma was really able to lend existence, what would be the consequence?
We would be immortal. Go back.
The body would never die. Right? It's like the reflected sunlight. That reflection exists only as long as the body exists, and therefore it's a temporary existence. That is the meaning of mithya. Satyatvam can never be transferred in totality. It is only borrowed Satyatvam. Because it is borrowed, it is temporary. So very good question. Okay. Any questions so far?
Maybe a silly question.
No, there's no questions are silly. Don't worry about it.
The initial
Manmohan, can you type out your question? Because
you said that
we can't hear you,
actually
Manmohan. You have to type out your question in the chat box.
I will do that later. Okay, sir. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
All right. So now look at the first line. There are two words, ime deha. Okay, now this is a bit of a grammar thing. Okay, so only those who are used to Sanskrit or even in Hindi. So ye is singular or plural?
Plural.
Plural. So ime is the same. Ime is plural. So ime deha. Now, unlike Hindi, we have three of them in Sanskrit. Okay, there is singular, there is dual, and there is plural. So ime is plural. So here ime deha means more than two bodies, multiple bodies. So ime deha, and then you look at the word shariri. Shariri is singular. So the implication here is that there are many bodies, but the one in the body is only one. Okay, so these again a little grammar. When you take ime deha, normally it should not be shariri because it should have, each body should have an indweller. But here we are saying that there is only one indweller in all the bodies. That's one thing. And one thing which we already discussed, two words are used, nityaha and avinashi. One to emphasize that one nityaha is absolute and not used in any relative way. So you can have a apekshika nityam. Apekshika nityam means relatively eternal, which is a term which can be used when the length of the life is very, very long as compared to the normal life. So if you take the jiva's normal life as, let us say, 100 years, then Lord Brahmaji is said to be eternal. Why? Because why is it said to be eternal?
Because compared to the Jivatma, it has a longer life.
Long life, but Lord Brahmaji also has a beginning and an end, right? That's what is meant over here. So that you must remember. The Nitya is relatively, it's not there. It is absolutely eternal. So Nitya means completely beyond the destruction of, even after the worlds are destroyed, after the universe is destroyed, even when the kalpa ends, even then Atma remains. And therefore what is required, he says, the last two words, having known all this, what is it that we have known? Antavanta eme deha. All these bodies which you have, they are all subject to death. However, sharirenihi Nityaha. The one which is inside the body, Arjuna, which you are, that is eternal. And that cannot be known also, because it's not an object of your knowledge. Having known all this, hey Arjuna, what should you do? Tasmat yuddhyasva bharata. Therefore, you go and fight. So what here the yuddhasva has to be recognized as Arjuna, do your duty. Do what is required to be done. And what Krishna is saying that, hey Arjuna, do not think that you are killing Bhishma, because you are killing only the body Bhishma. That body is anyway antavantaha. Do not think that you are killing Drona, because that body is anyway antavantaha. The Atma Bhishma you cannot kill, because it is not subject to destruction, avinashi. It's not subject to destruction at all. That Drona Atma you cannot kill, not subject to destruction. And therefore, Arjuna, just do what you are supposed to do. Okay. Now here a question can come. Is Krishna giving Arjuna an order to fight? So in his commentary, Shankara makes an interesting statement. He says that Krishna didn't have to ask Arjuna to fight. Why? Because when Arjuna came to the battlefield, he was all ready to fight anyway. If he had not been wanting to fight, he would not have entered the battlefield. The battle had already come on to the Pandavas, brought about by the karma, all the actions which had been done by the Kauravas. And what was Arjuna supposed to do on the battlefield? Arjuna was a Kshatriya. He was a Kshatriya. He had to protect his nation and his people. That was the Swadharma of a Kshatriya, to protect his people. But what is the problem? So Shankara says that due to Raga, Shoka and Moha, this Arjuna was prevented from doing his duty, which is to fight. So these Raga, Shoka, Moha, they were the pratibandhas, the obstacles to Arjuna doing his duty. And therefore Shankara says Krishna was only trying to remove those obstacles. So this do not withdraw from battle is not a command for action. It is saying that Arjuna, remember what is your duty and act in accordance with your duty. So once the obstacles were removed, Arjuna would be able to act in accordance with Dharma Shastra. And what was the Dharma Shastra? What does it say? It says that Kshatriya has to fight a battle when needed to. And therefore, Shankara makes a very potent statement which goes against almost everything that you have heard. Because everywhere people say that Bhagavad Gita is a call for action. Right? Shankara says there is no karma vidhi in Bhagavad Gita. Karma is not discussed at all. There is no, injunction by this Bhagavad Gita that we should do karma. A very important statement. So what have we seen so far? We have seen Atma is Nitya, Atma is Satya, Atma is Sarvagataha, Atma is Aprameya. These statements we have seen so far. With this, I'll stop if there are any questions.
Saviji?
Yes, please.
But Krishna does say in the beginning about that Klaibyam Masmakam Partha, get up and go and fight. He does say that in the beginning.
That's what Shankara's interpretation is, that all this is meant for removing the obstacles which had the pratibandhas which had come in the way of Arjuna doing his duty. Why does he say this? Because in the Upanishads, which is the very source of the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads do not have a call for action at all, anywhere. Even when they talk about Vaidika karma, that karma is purely in terms of cleansing your mind. And since Bhagavad Gita is a summary of that, Krishna says that, Shankaracharya says that you cannot possibly interpret the Bhagavad Gita as being something which asks you to do action. It has to be taken as Dharma Shastram says you have to do action. So it's a Dharma Shastram which asks to do action. Bhagavad Gita cannot be taken as that.
So what is a Dharma Shastra? Example?
Dharma Shastra is all the Purva Veda. Karma Kanda part is Dharma Shastra.
So
Yeah.
in this shloka, the Shariri has to be taken as soul. I mean,
Shariri has to be taken as?
as soul, as considered as
No.
Atma.
Shariri is taken as Atma. So please don't use English words. The more you use English words, the more you get confused. So if at all you have to use English, you take Shariri as universal soul, which is the Atma, only one. Soul has the unfortunate meaning of one soul for each body that we don't subscribe to.
Raviji, can I ask
Yeah,
something?
of course.
Based on that same transfer discussion, I'm still
Yeah.
thinking about that. I think once we had this discussion before where Sat and Chit are self-evident, very obvious, it's right there. But the Ananta part, that is, I mean, that is the part that is covered by the Avidya in a way.
Yes.
This is the whole sense of limitation and everything. So in a way, it's almost like the Sat and Chit is borrowed or transferred, or but only the Ananta part is not, and that's the problem. That is the main problem.
Ananta part is not understood. Yes. Sat and Chit is obvious. It's self, Swayam Prakashaka. But the fact that I am Ananta, that is not so obvious. And in fact, the entire Shastram is essentially aimed at telling you that you're Ananta. If you're Ananta, then there is no problem, right? Then you're Ananda also. So it's a very good, for those who have not understood, there's a very good play on the word Ananta. What is the meaning of Brahman? What is the definition of Brahman? Satchit Ananda, right? But Ananda is not taken as Ananda. Ananda is taken as Ananta, as Meda has said. Ananta means infinite. And that which is infinite, why would it give you Ananda?
Because there is
Because
no
anything
fear.
Because you have everything, you don't need anything.
Because Raga Dvesha comes only from Avidya.
because anything that is finite will give us the pain also.
So anything which is finite is also available in the infinite. That is what is said. That is why Ananta. And therefore Shankara says very clearly that whenever you read the term Ananda, understand it as Ananta Ananda. That Ananda arising out of your being Ananta. Because once you are infinite, you need nothing. You can possibly want nothing, right? Because if you say you're infinite, everything is already there.
Good morning, Raviji.
Morning, Ashok.
One question I have is, you said there's not everybody has a separate soul. The soul is common.
Yes.
Then how many souls? Only one soul in the world?
No, there you are using English. Okay, so now ये अंग्रेजी में बड़ा problem. You use the word Atma. There is only one Atma.
Yeah.
And every body, I mean literally B-O-D-Y body, or the mind for that matter, is a reflecting medium for that Atma.
Right.
So that body or the mind that contains a reflection of that Atma, that reflected Atma is called the individual soul. It's called the Jivatma.
Okay.
It's not really there. It's like you having 1,000 mirrors in
Right.
which one sun is there.
Yeah.
That reflection is not really there. You can see it.
Okay.
But it is unreal.
Then why do we say भगवान उसकी आत्मा को शांति दे? तो उसकी आत्मा तो रही नहीं ना फिर.
जीवात्मा को शांति दे. भगवान himself is Atma. वो अपने आप को शांति मांगेगा.
लोग बोलते हैं कि भगवान उसकी आत्मा को सद्गति दे, शांति दे, all that.
Yeah. So effectively, those things are all at the level of the Karma Kanda, where you look at yourself as different from Atma. As you come to Jnana Kanda, that stops.
Okay.
सर मैं एक और बात पूछना चाह रही थी.
हाँ जी.
अगर आत्मा सेम सब
So how is it decided कि ये इस body में जाएगी और इस body का ये रहेगा कि ये जल्दी मर जाएगा, ये कष्ट में रहेगा? How, if it is the same for everybody, then what is the deciding factor?
Veda, would you like to answer that?
Karmas.
Is Veda there? Yeah. Would you like
Yeah.
to answer? Yeah.
It's based on the karmas. I mean, Atma doesn't do anything. This is all happening at the level of Vyavaharika, and the Vyavaharika follows a set of rules. And based on those rules, these things are decided. And it's not arbitrary. It's not like Ishvara hates some people and likes some people. There's no Raga Dvesha on Ishvara's part. It is just based on our own karmas. Some things have to fructify, and they will. Just like how gravity works, it is as neutral as that.
That I understand, but the basic, the Chetna, the Atma, whichever is inside us, because it is a part of, suppose it is a reflection, but reflection, how does this particular, this being, one who,
Abaji, let me explain. Supposing you have two mirrors.
Yeah.
One mirror is broken, one mirror is clear. And
Yeah.
you look at your face.
Yeah.
In one mirror, you have a clean face. In one mirror, you have a broken face.
Yes, sir, this is what I'm asking. The reflection.
So the
if
broken
you go to
face
a
is dependent
broken- a
upon what?
broken mirror, how is it decided?
Because of
That
your
if
karma.
you go- Yeah, so
The fact that you got a broken mirror is your prarabdha karma.
that is true, but what is it which is separate in us? If Atma is the same in
You are-
everybody,
well,
what is
us,
it which is
The
separate?
moment you use the word separate, you have discarded Atma.
Yeah, this is what I am asking, because this is Chetna, which is driving all of us, all
Yeah,
human,
but
everything.
it drives what? Right? Supposing, for example, you got a fan or you got an AC, let us say, and you got a heater. The same electricity flows through both. One
Yeah.
gives you cool air, one gives you hot air.
Yes.
What is the difference?
Difference is in the form in which this thing is being.
Exactly. Difference is the design of the instrument. That design is decided by you, the Jivatma, by your prarabdha karma.
This is what I'm not able to understand, sir. If you will bear with me, because it may appear very
It'll
idiotic.
take a long time. Have you attended Tattvabodha class, the law of karma?
Yes, sir, but
You need to
probably I need to revise it.
you
Yeah.
need to revise it. The Jivatma does karma.
Yes.
The karma fructifying for the next birth will give you whatever body you got.
Yes, sir. So Jivatma is a what to vis-a-vis Atma.
Jivatma is your reflection. For the example of the sunlight, the Jivatma is the reflected sunlight, which consists of the body plus the original
So
sun as a reflection.
Jivatma is the thing which is accumulating the prarabdha karma.
Yes, because Jivatma thinks it is the body-mind complex, and as long as that link is there, the prarabdha will keep on accumulating.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, going behind karma as well, all our three gunas also part of that. How we think and we behave because of a combination of gunas would also cause the karma to be created. So is that also a cause for our existence?
The three gunas are basically prakriti, matter.
Right.
The entire anatma part of you is triguna only. Body is three gunas in gross form. Mind is three gunas in a subtler form. So sukshma shariram, karana shariram, and your, the subtle body, gross body, and karana shariram, all are three gunas only. The moment you say prakriti, gunas are already there. What sort of body you got here in this birth is dependent upon prarabdha, and therefore whatever gunas you have in this birth is dependent upon prarabdha, but you also have free will. That free will can be used to counteract the pull of the three gunas.
Thank you, sir.
Acharya ji, what is prarabdha?
A very basic question. I think you'll have to go back to Tattvabodha class for that.
And one thing more. Sorry. So Jivatma is a slightly different entity from Atma. It's
No, I will bring you back to the sunlight and the mirror example. Is the reflected sun different from the original sun?
Not exactly.
Exactly. That's my answer also. Not exactly.
Okay.
It depends upon the perception of the mirror. Moment the mirror perception is gone, the difference is gone.
Thank you.
Acharya ji, so this also kind of brings forth that the body, we cannot negate it totally, since it's also a vehicle through which we do our karma.
Yes. You can never negate the body in this world. You are not being asked to negate the body. You are being asked, not being asked to remove the body. You are being asked to remove the idea of the body as yourself.
Identity.
Yeah. That is all that is Shastra is saying. Because to remove the body, to ask to remove the body, that question itself has to come to the body-mind complex only, right?
Right.
So you can't remove the body-mind complex. All you have to do is understand that that is a different level of reality from the real you, who is the Paramarthik Satya.
Right. I get.
Okay,
So-
so with this we have to stop. It's already 9:10. People must be having the other things. Please do put up your questions. The next class I'll try to wind up a bit earlier so that if we wind up around 8:45, maybe we'll have more time. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience,
Namah
guys.
Shivaya.
Thank you so much.